Do we have some Zoom people? Ooh. Invite them.
Excellent. Do we have anybody zooming in, do you know?
I don't see anybody. Oh, let's speak of the devil. David Lowe's coming in.
Okay.
Jessica's going to be late. She'll be zooming in.
Okay.
And Councilor McMorrin is on his way, fighting traffic through Salem. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. Really appreciate the service you provide to the community and to the city of Philomath. I'm going to welcome everyone to the April 5th, 2023 Budget Committee meeting. And we're going to call the meeting to order. We're first going to get started with a roll call, and then we'll have an election of the chair and vice chair. And then we will go through with our budget presentation, have a budget calendar review, a review of the budget calendar, and then discuss our next meeting before we adjourn. We really appreciate you all being here. And let's go ahead and get started with a roll call.
Well, let's just not miss anybody. If I try going around the table, I'll get everybody confused. Mayor Chaz Jones.
Here.
Jessica Andrade is not here yet. We'll confirm when she gets here. Diane Crocker.
Here.
Ruth Causey.
Here.
Matt Lehman. Here. Christopher McMorrin is en route. Teresa Nielsen.
Here.
Candy Cates.
Here.
Spencer Irwin.
Here.
Ben Hutsaker.
Here.
Jeff Shmansky.
Here.
Brett Caseman.
Here.
David Lowe.
Here.
And Mark Kepi.
Here.
Well, excellent. Really appreciate that. And next, first on the agenda is we're going to elect a chair and vice chair. And we typically have members of the public serve in these roles. And first we'll start off with nominations, which we'll accept, and then we'll have a vote. Chris, do you want to give a summary of the role of each of them?
Yeah, I can. So yeah, don't let it scare you too much in title. I mean, you're going to do essentially what the mayor just did, which is welcome
clearly takes no
people,
skill.
ask for roll to be taken. Once we get into the budget, part of chairing any committee is just making sure that everybody has a voice at the table, make sure that no one individual is dominating the conversation. Just making sure that people have an opportunity to speak. You don't have to call on people, and any of that. So really, it's just about following through the agenda. There's no outside work outside of the meetings that you have to do. You don't have to do any extra research or anything like that. So when you're chairing the budget committee, you really are just chairing the committee meetings when you get here. There's not a lot of outside responsibilities other than just, you probably want to read through the agenda a little bit ahead of time. I'll probably have a conversation with you, or Mike have a conversation with you ahead of time, just so you kind of know process-wise where we're going on the agenda, so you're familiar with it. That's about it. It's fairly low-key.
And what's that vice chair role?
The vice chair is going to fill in just if the chair is not available. So the exact same thing. The chair can't make it for some reason. They show up late. They get caught in traffic. They win the lottery and bug off to wherever. We just have somebody ahead of time, so we're not, spending the first 3 minutes of another meeting picking somebody. So.
Excellent. So, like I said, we'll go ahead and accept nominations. You can self-nominate or nominate someone else. Councilor Causey.
I would like to, nominate Ben Hunsaker as chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a motion to nominate.
Is that motion?
We'll just take all nominations right there. Then we can decide.
I would like to nominate this man whose name has escaped me right at this moment.
Brett.
Brett, oh yes, Brett, yes.
Okay, thank you. And just note that Councilor McMorrin has graced us.
Where should I be?
Anywhere you'd like. Any further nominations?
Warning, here at the back of your head is prominent on the display.
Well, at least it's not the front of my face.
And Christopher, we're just nominating a chairperson, or electing a chair, and then a vice chair afterwards. So we have 2 nominations. Any further nominations? Chris, do you want us simply to, well, first of all, nominations. I want to ask if people will accept those nominations. Brent, Van, are you?
Yes.
Okay, good. And Chris, do you want to just vote hands up for each of them? Is that best way to go about this?
Yeah, they're both good with the nominations.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think just a hand vote
Okay.
would be fine.
So all in favor of moving forward with Van Hunziker as the chairperson, please raise your hand and say aye.
Raise them high.
Raise them, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And David Lowe, I don't see your hand up. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
It's a little dark.
that's 7.
No
Okay.
light here.
We can't see your face, it's all black.
Okay, so we had 7.
7.
And then all in favor of Brent Caseman as chair, please raise your hand. Say aye.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Okay,
5. One on. I see it.
got it. So it looks like Van Hunziker has won the chair position. And with that, I'll go ahead and make a nomination of Brent Caseman for vice chair, if you'll accept.
It's chair or nothing.
Oh, boy. I'm shocked. See, he's got a sense of humor.
You're on, but.
Any further nominations? Okay, all in favor of electing Brent Caseman as vice chair, please raise your hand. Say aye.
That looks unanimous.
It's almost unanimous because he didn't vote. But, okay, great. Thank you for that. So with that, Van,
Okay, so.
you can have the gavel.
Oh, yeah.
Does he get
When I
the
was
thing?
mayor 25 years ago, I broke this one.
Oh, my goodness.
You sure you want this?
Wait.
Would have been nice to know before we voted.
And so we'll go ahead and have Van run the rest of the meeting.
Okay, so now we'll have presentation on the 23-24 budget orientation. I assume you're doing that. Mike Sawyer, the city's, what's your title?
Budget officer. Well, I'm the finance director / budget officer.
Super.
He's loading it up.
Oh, okay.
I can get all the other weird Zoom things out of the way.
Without killing anything.
While he's doing that, just as a note, from past experience, anything you're doing here on the table, making noises or anything, if the people tuning in through Zoom hear all that pretty loud, so kind of be aware.
No humming.
No, well, it's more the stuff on the table, you know, ruffling the paper.
I have a bad habit of doing my fingers, and so
Right.
I've been called out. A few people be like, "What's that drumming?" I'm like, "I don't know." This thing working?
Not a clue.
Okay, are we all ready? Okay, you're now not official budget committee until the 19th. Today is when we noticed your meeting for the 19th, so that should be in the paper. But tonight, we're going to give you an orientation on what we're going to do. So why don't you go ahead and get this thing going. Okay, we haven't done introductions yet. Anyway, I've done my introductions. I'm Mike Merzinski. We'll go your way.
Oh, we're gonna do it again?
Yeah.
Okay, Van Hunsaker.
Maybe tell your how many years on budget committee or any past volunteer experience maybe might be helpful.
Well, back in the 90s,
Uh-oh.
late 80s. I was on the city council and the mayor, and in recent years, I'm now on the planning commission, and I think this is the second year of the budget committee, or maybe third.
I'm Christopher McMorrin. I am currently on the city council. I was previously on the budget committee for a year, I think, and some various other committees. So just now doing it with a different title.
And Brent Caseman, it's my first day, I'm the vice chair.
I'm buying stock. Matt Lehman, City Council, and before that I was on the Budget Committee, so this is like my 7th time in budget total.
Candy Cates, and this is my 2nd time on the Budget Committee, and I was on City Council for a while.
Diane Crocker, City Council, first budget meeting.
Teresa Nielsen, city councilor as well, and done a lot of family budgets in my day, so just a little bit there. No, 2nd term, so.
I'm Mark Kippy, born and raised in Corvallis. 84, I married a Philomath gal and moved to town. 85, I volunteered for the police department as a reserve and the fire department as well, and ran for council in 90 and 91 when Van was mayor when I was on council. I don't remember what committees I was on in those 2 years, but could have been budget, I don't remember. Just recently retired from the Philomath Police Department, so here I am.
Spencer Irwin, I've been on the Parks Board for a long, it seemed like a long time, 3 years, I think, or something.
3, 4 years.
And I think it's my 3rd year on Budget Committee. I had 2 books when I left, so I think this will be my 3rd year. Yeah, volunteer.
Thanks.
I'm Jeff Sheminsky, and this is my 2nd year on the Budget Committee.
I'm Ruth Gozzi, I'm a city councilor, and I have been on the Budget Committee since 2019.
Chaz Jones, mayor, been on the budget committee since 2017 or 18 or something like that.
And Chris Workman, city manager. I've never been on the budget committee before, but I'm happy to run IT.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, tonight, here's a schedule of meetings, dates and times. Tonight is the budget orientation. You'll get your binders on the 14th. So we'll be crunching the numbers the next week and a half. Next meeting will be April 19th at 5:30. We will have to do another election for the chair, so Ben will have to run it, and so you'll just have to run another election. Hopefully you don't get beat at that election. That'd be strange. But we have to do it for the URA because we did not notice it for tonight. And that night, we're going to do we'll deliver the budget message and go over, have a public hearing on the state shared revenues. Go through the budget document, front to back. And we'll talk about any changes any relative changes, then provide members of the public, basically reading that whole list for you. So the next budget meeting will be May 3rd. You'll get your budget book on April 28th. So the next meeting will be, the second meeting will be really the big meeting. Where the first meeting, we're going to go through it line by line, or not line by line, page by page. We're going to take your questions, no debates, and we're going to go over it the next meeting in earnest. Go through anything y'all want to talk about. The first, we're going to talk about it really the second meeting. Third meeting is when you go ahead, that's when you're going to do your approval of the budget, or approve the budget to the council for their adoption. And then June 12th is when the council will do their a public hearing for the state share, because we have to do that. And then we will do the adoptions. The city will do it on that day. Go ahead.
Does everybody know what the Urban Renewal Agency is?
Oh. Oh, sorry, man. Urban Renewal, the URA, that's our Urban Renewal Agency. We have two, you're doing two things right now, not tonight, but when we meet the next time, we're gonna have the city and the urban renewal area. So there's two, we're doing it combined because we can do that. So does that help you there? I could spend more time telling you what it is.
That's probably good for now.
Okay.
I'll Google it too.
Yeah, look it up. We've got a whole page on it. Okay, so in the budget committee, who is the budget committee? The budget committee is y'all. I think the only one we're missing right now is Jessica. So we should have 13 bodies. I didn't count. So, and when we voted, somebody didn't vote. I got 12 when they voted the first time.
So I just walked in, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, good point. Okay, I missed that. Go ahead, Jeff.
What's the quorum necessary for that?
We gotta have a quorum. There's 14, so we have to have 8 at least. And so that's the quorum. It gets a little dicey because you've got 7 committee members, city council members, and 7 city members. Let's not go there. It's a little bizarre. So your terms are staggered. You have 3-year terms, and then we have everybody, every 1/3, we have somebody has to re-up. So, and you can be reappointed. So, I mean, we have a lot of y'all that are coming back for consecutive terms. So, if you're going to stay, we're not going to cry. We like having you here. So.
Real quick, Councilor Andrade, it looks like she's coming in.
Is she coming in? Yeah. Okay, who runs the budget meeting? Well, the committee is run by Ben, the gentleman you elected tonight. He'll preside over the meetings, and each one of you have the same degree of authority and responsibility for this budget, so your voice is all equal. Okay, what do y'all do? Now, one thing I would caution, I did not really put this thing together. I stole it from Joan, so it's still, I'm learning a little bit. You'll know when I hit my part. You'll know when I know it. I'm looking at going, okay, what was Joan saying there? But I understand what she's doing and it makes sense. So your job is to receive the budget, hear the budget message, hear and consider all public comments, discuss the budget and revisions as needed, and approve the budget and approve the property taxes to the council for adoption.
We'll just add that we'll have opportunity in part of the budget committee, and it'll be noticed for the public to be able to come. They've got the opportunity to read the budget as well. It'll be posted, available to them. They can read it. They may come and they have comments as well, right? And so you'll be responsible to take their testimony and consider it, and then as you deliberate and talk about it and ask questions, make sure that's reflective. Not sure whose speaker's giving us feedback, but I don't want to come out of this. It's pretty minor, so we'll just keep going.
Okay, what do you not do? And I'm going to strike the first one because I don't believe that, because you don't do the new personnel or the contracts. I take that back. Those will be brought in. The council does those prior to that, or is it safe to say we settled stuff? Or we're working on settling the contracts?
Yeah, we're negotiating new union contracts right now. We do a 3-year union contract for our police. We have a separate union for public works, and then we've got several unrepresented employees. Let me fix that real quick. Let me see what's going on.
It's this one.
David, if you could mute yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm going to mute everybody. Yeah, David, just use the raise your hand feature if you have a comment, and I'll pull you in. But I think we're getting a little feedback or echo from your side. Thank you. Okay, so the point of this being that, staff and the city council are going to work to get those contracts agreed upon and get those entered in there. I think specifically what the budget committee isn't going to say is, well, we want to get rid of 1 police officer, we want to hire 1 more public works utility worker. Those aren't decisions that you make at the budget committee level. Those decisions made at a staff level or at the city council level. But what you will look at is you'll look at dollar amounts that go and are attributed to each department, right? And so in essence, if you wanted to, say, cut the police department in half, you would look at it, you would cut their budget in half, but you wouldn't necessarily fire 3 employees, right? You would just cut that budget. And then we'd have to act accordingly based on that action that was taken. So when it talks about you're not approving new personnel, you wouldn't say, well, we want to add $100,000 to this department to add a new employee. You could add the money there with the intention, but at the end of the day, it's going to be council and staff that makes the decision to hire that new employee or not, but you're going to put the funds there to do it. That makes sense.
Yes. Okay, and the budget committee can make line item adjustments. That's why I say that's the one I do not believe in. All my years, sometimes we have to make a line item adjustment, say for capital projects, and we want to put more money into it. That is something that y'all can do. And then yeah, anywhere else in the budget you can do it. That's why we go page by page. So that's why you get the item, the budget booklet on the 14th and go through it if you can. You got questions, please bring them. Now you may direct us to make $1 adjustments, like Chris said, to certain budgets, like cut them in half and whatever you want to do. You give us the money and we just we don't tell them. We say, here, chief, here's your money, spread it out as you will. So, I think you skipped one. I thought there was another one there. Okay, like Chris was talking earlier, we make time for the public to come in, and we advertise. That's why we advertise this. It's in the paper today, and it'll be on the website hopefully tomorrow. And we'll keep it on the website and through the times that we're meeting. Any person that wants to address the budget committee is welcome to do that. They have to have their information, or they just show up. If they want to, if they want to Zoom in, they need to let us know so we can get them the information. Or they can give us send us letters and have by 12 o'clock noon the day they're going to meet. And we try to get as much public comment as possible. Now the meeting rules, as we do the virtual world, we're going to have to make sure everybody is out there raises their hand. And the same in here. When you have a question, let somebody finish and make sure you get Van's attention so you can talk next. Then respect everybody's opinion. Everybody's got one. So we're 14 of us. We're going to have 14 different opinions, and just be respectful, and then be considerate of another's time. This is, it's just go through it. We'll get through this. When the decision has been made, let's move on and support it. And we got a lot to do. We got a big budget to go through and take some time. So now limit your discussions about the budget committee outside of here. You can't meet as a group unless you shouldn't. That's one of the not to do's. In here, try to just stay as a group. And we'll get through. Like I keep saying, we get through it. It's a long process. It takes time. Everybody's done it before. It takes a little bit of time.
The city council's picked up on this pretty good, that you just want to be careful. Even if you're at a track meet, if you're sitting right next to another city council member, the assumption is you and the other council member are talking city business, right? That's just going to be the assumption. So just be cautious of that, going forward. Definitely, I would discourage you from meeting and talking about the budget, but I even discourage you from sitting around talking like you might be talking about the budget, right? Just avoid the appearance of some type of public meeting or budget discussion outside of the public realm, which is here, right? If you have thoughts or you have comments to share about the budget, really the people you should be sharing that with are the people that are around this table on the budget committee. And folks outside of here, invite them to come. If somebody stops you at the grocery store and say, hey, aren't you on the budget committee? Yeah, I've got a bone to pick about that. Hey, come to the next meeting, right? I'd love to hear from you, but I'd rather that everybody hear from you. Please come to the next meeting and provide testimony or write something up. You can give it to me and I'll forward it on. So make it easy for them. But I would avoid one-on-one discussions with individuals about it. I would avoid talking to each other about the budget outside of these meetings. Just keep it public in the public realms. Best practice.
Okay, how is the budget going to be developed? Council has met a couple different times the last couple of months. We did the SDCs first, and then we have done the utility rates. They approved those, and the Public Works Committee approved the approve the CIP to council for the next meeting, so the next meeting we'll have the capital project.
What's STC and CIP stand for?
SDC, System Development Charges, sorry, I'm forgetting about that. I need to put an acronym book together. You really do. So the CIP is capital improvement, utility rates, I said that. All right, so all of those items, I needed that to build the budget, which I'm currently doing. Just let me put it to you this way, I've put the budget together, you'll see it in a week, or on the 14th. Maybe we just can't talk about it yet, but I can talk about the parameters that we put into it. The strategic plan, I'm made to let Chris talk about that. The capital improvement, I don't remember all the projects we put on there. There's quite a few. It's an ambitious CIP. I think we can do it. Utility rates, we've increased those, all the volume rates by 50 cents or 75 cents, I don't remember which. But all the fees related to the utility rates, we raised them 5.56% based on the engineering news record. That's something that Public Works use. They use that to do the SDCs, System Development Charges, for that increase. So Chris and I figured, well, that's a good number to use. Everybody uses that. It's a standardized number. It's something it's nationwide. So the big thing that we're facing is everybody else is facing. Our budgets this year are getting hit pretty hard by inflation. And what we're going to face next year coming in, we've got PERS went up 2.56%. The CIP is just, you all know what that's like, and I think ours is like 6.5 or something.
CPI.
Like the CPI, Consumer Price Index. So just the basic, our PERS went up. I said that PERS is our Public Employment Retirement System. We're facing at a minimum right now 13.4% increase in budget next year, based on employee stuff, materials and services, and so on. Everybody's facing it. I mean, we're facing it. We're a business too. So the numbers are going to look a little high compared to the last couple of years. So that's how we go through the process. That's what we develop. The council gives me these tools. I've got all these other tools from the other networks out there. So that's how I build the budget. And we'll have that to you next week. You want to add anything?
I guess if there's any questions, it'd be best. Any questions about what the strategic plan is, or is everybody familiar with that and that process? So the strategic plan is there. It's 5 years. It's got specific projects. Some of those projects cost money. Some don't. Some are some things that staff does. Other things are things that are going to cost money. So if there's something in the strategic plan for this year, we have to make sure that there's funds in this year's budget for it. So we have to let Mike know, here's the things the council wants to do this fiscal year. We got to allocate some money, so you'll see some of those items in the budget, right? The capital improvement plan, same thing, that goes through the Public Works Committee and then to the City Council, and they're going to approve the list of all the capital projects, street projects, water, sewer, storm, park projects, equipment purchases, building, remodeling, and that kind of stuff. That all gets approved by the City Council. Then Mike rolls all those numbers into the budget. So, the nice part is a lot of that lifting's already been done. Let me finish up on utility rates. As Mike said, the City Council's already looked at rates. They've already made approvals for utility rates effective July 1. So the nice part about Budget Committee is a lot of that groundwork's already been done, right? You don't have to make those decisions. Should we raise utility rates or not? Council's already made those hard decisions, right? You're looking at it, say, okay, council used raise utility rates here. Here's our expenses. Do those line up? Do we have sufficient? Great, right? That's kind of the level of the review that you're doing. You're not having to create new projects or come up with new expenses or find new revenue sources. The council's done a lot of that hard work and built the budget with, the staff's kind of built the budget, and your job's really just to review, make sure all the pieces are in the puzzle, right? So it's kind of nice. You don't have the heavy lifting. It's a review. more than a creative process for you.
You just went through the strategic.
That's what they're supposed to skip through. Strategic plan, we've got 5 different, I'll hit it real quick. We've got 5 main areas that the council focuses on. I think we've added a little bit of language to some of these, so they're not 100%, but they're essentially there. And then the bottom just states again, we've got missions, themes, goals, objectives of goals, and then the action items. The action items are the ones where we actually put a price tag next to those actions. That's the thing we're doing this year in order to reach that objective, to meet that goal, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how the strategic plan works. And it's online. If you want to look at it, you want to email me, get a copy of it, I'm happy to shoot you out an email, the updated one. The council just updated it last month. Yeah. So it's very recent. It's available to everybody. Capital improvement, I'll keep going because I already kind of touched on it. Capital improvement plan, I just talked through all of the different elements there. We look out multiple years. We have schedules for equipment to purchase. We put money forward every single year for future purchases of our equipment, which some municipalities don't do as well as others. Big capital expenditures, street improvements, water projects, we put money forward every single year. We put money for future projects. And then when that fund builds up over several years, then we do those big projects. Try not to borrow money other than when we have to. Other than for very large projects, we're going to borrow and pay that out over the life of the project. But for most part, we're trying to get as much money ahead of time so we're not having to pay interest on those things. So that's CIP, capital improvement plan. The utility rates we just talked through. We're looking at our expenses. We don't use our utilities as profit centers. We don't try to generate more money in the water department so we can pay for the city manager's salary, right? The money that we raise in the water utility is to maintain the water system. So we don't charge any more to our customers for water than what it takes to maintain the current system and make expansions where necessary, replace old infrastructure, replace old pipes, replace an old treatment plant. But we really do try to keep the rates just low enough and high enough that we've got enough revenue coming in to cover expenses. We put a little bit of money so we can pay for some future expenses, but nothing more than that, right? We're not stockpiling millions and millions of dollars every single year and using it as like a cash fund, like I said. So utility rates just pay for the utility rates, current and some future expense stuff, right? Just like any other investment, you want to charge just what you have now. You're always going to put a little bit aside for the future, but it's not a whole lot, right? So that's utility rates that you'll see.
And now, how is the budget organized? Everybody's familiar, I hope, with the general fund. That's really the big thing of the city. The items that I'll go into detail on the general fund in a minute, but the street fund, the water, and the sewer, and the new storm, those are proprietary. Those are, as Chris said, they're a profit center, but not enough, not to make a whole bunch of profit. But we can't use any of that money to do anything but streets, sewer, water. That's pretty much all they can do with that money. Only we can pay debt with it, but that debt's got to be related to that. Now, the land, building, and equipment is something that the city's had, I don't know for how long, but it is where we do our big projects. We put money aside for it. For example, we have money set aside for a remodel for the city hall. We just put money aside last year for this remodel. So at least the city is putting money aside every year. It's like clockwork. It's a good thing to do, to set up a reserve. That's what the land, building, and equipment fund is all about. We put money aside. Now, the system development charge, or the system development fund, we have 2 of them. We have a general one and we have a proprietary one. The general one is ones that is going for, that's streets, if I'm not mistaken, streets and parks, and any, that's pretty much it, streets and parks. And then the one for proprietary is sewer and water, nothing for storm, right? We use
storm as well.
We have a little bit of storm, the storm drain, that's something new. So that's how those are derived. Now, the general fund is the big fund. That's where the majority of our money is. And that's the one that's discretionary. These other ones are special revenue type funds. That money has to be used for whatever the name of that project or that fund is. The general fund, we have the administrative arm of the city, we have the police. I almost said fire. I'm Newport too long.
You could list on there, you can see the different departments within the general
Oh,
fund.
right, there you go. We got the building, we have finance, we have muni court, police, and then the buildings and grounds, that's the city buildings and grounds, then parks. The non-departmental is gone. That is, we'll talk about that in a bit. City council is, the city council, the transfers, that is basically going to the LBE, the Land Building and Equipment Fund. That's for police department vehicles, any equipment that we're putting, we put money aside for equipment, anything like this, the tables we got, the chairs, we put money aside for that. In building maintenance, we are building, like I said, this particular, the city council chamber, we put money aside for it. So that's the general fund. That's the one that you're going to be really spending a lot of time looking at. We could, you may hopefully have a lot of questions there. But what you're looking at here is an example of the general fund. We've got, I just went through all the expenditures. Now, the other items that, where all the discretionary dollars are is your property taxes, your building permits. They're not quite discretionary. They have, that money has to be used for building stuff, and that is going for root. But that's we haven't set up the big part. General fund fee is no longer there. This is an old slide. Franchise fees, there's another discretionary, and the same goes with the admin overhead. That's the stuff that we charge the funds to operate the city. That's Chris's charge, my department, to all the other departments. So that's the general fund. Does anybody have any questions on the general fund or any of the funds or how we're organized? And it's basically an income statement. Like Teresa said, she's been doing budgets forever. She knew what her income was, and she had her budget. So you all do the same thing. This is what we do also. We have to be a little bit more detailed because we have to tell the public how we're spending the money and tell the council how we're spending the money so they're well aware of where. Personal services, that's where everybody gets paid. That's our salaries and all the related expenditures that we have there. Materials and services, that's our office supplies and so on. Debt service is what it is. We have some debt that we have to pay. Transfers, a lot of that's going to the land building and equipment. Each fund has put money aside because it's usually affiliated with somebody like Public Works or the police or something like that. Contingencies is something we like to have aside, put that aside so we can have an emergency, we can get to it. If there's ever a big emergency that takes that away, the last thing that we have as a resort is the ending cash balance. But we can only touch that in an emergency, and there's certain rules that we have to follow to do that. So, that's pretty much our funding streams and how we spend it.
Mike, could you tell us what debt the city holds?
Well, okay, right now, we have some, two debts. We got the URA and we have something for the sewer fund that we're paying for. There's one other I can't think off the top of my head. There's not a whole bunch of debt. But the two big ones that we have are those two. The sewer fund, we paid for the lagoon with a GO bond, but we refinanced that. And when we did, we took out some URA money for the road that we're doing out here. So that's the two big ones that you have. The other ones, can't remember what the other one was. It's a small one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think the others we've got for the water and sewer lines that we put in the industrial area north of the highway. We borrowed some money from the state, put that in there, and then we've got an agreement with the current property owner to pay us every year. And so we just transfer. So they pay us and then we pay the state back for that loan that we got for that infrastructure. It was intended to build up that industrial zone.
Could you also tell us what distinguishes a fund as proprietary versus non-proprietary
A non-proprietary is basically, think of the general fund, it's discretionary. The proprietary one is, you're getting in, we're going down into the weeds, and that's okay, you need to know this, because you got the proprietary, it's really a business type fund. We call it a for-profit. That's the only ones that we have that are for profit. But, it's the sewer, street, well, street's not really, it's close to it, but it's not quite there. But it's the sewer, water, and storm drain. Those are the three that we have that are proprietary business type. They're utility fund, that's where the utility rates are taken in. That's where we take all the money, and that's where we spend the operations, and that's where we put money aside for future expansion or renovations. So that's how those three funds, that money it's not discretionary, it's specific. And the same goes with, we've got a few, the street fund is a special revenue fund. These other ones are proprietary. Special revenue fund falls into the governmental. Don't get confused by that, because we won't talk too much that way when we're doing the budget. That's more of accounting. Yeah, that's GAAP and GASB. GAAP is generally accepted accounting principles, and GASB is our governmental accounting standards board. These are the rules that we have to follow when we do the audit. Because right now, when I start the audit, I start the budget, I'm basically starting the audit for that year right there, because I'm starting to build it. I kind of do it concurrently. So didn't want to get into the deep weeds, but I could go forever on that one. So anyway.
That's fine, thank you.
I think the general rule is we use the bucket analogy, because you think of buckets full of water. Just the general rule is the water that's in that bucket, for the most part, has to stay in that bucket. The general fund is the big bucket, and you can pour water out of the general fund into any of the other buckets. So you can use general fund money for streets, for water, you can put it into land building equipment for future expenses for building repairs or building remodels. So the big bucket, the general fund, you can put that water into the smaller buckets, okay, but you can't take money from the street fund and pour it into the general fund and use it for like police services or park improvements, right? So that the water in the little buckets has got to stay in those little buckets. The general fund water, it can kind of go wherever. It's less private, it can go where it needs to go. There's rules, there's exceptions, there's a lot of details. So I don't want to oversimplify it, but in my mind, that's how I work. I go with what water in the buckets and what water can be poured into what buckets. That seems to work pretty well for me.
Now, the American Rescue Plan, we still have some money left in the budgets. Some of it's being used for the 16th, 17th, and 18th Street sewer. You'll see that in the land building and equipment. And I'll probably give you a copy of the capital improvement plan so you can see how that particular fund was built. Now, there will be about 179,000. We may use that, but we've got to talk to council how we're going to use that. So we got $1.2 million from the American Rescue Plan, and that had to be used for assistance to households and hard hit industries and infrastructure. In revenue replacement, that's one thing that wasn't put up there. And the monies have to be used by December 24th. I shouldn't say used, it has to be encumbered and spent by December 31st, 2026. Otherwise, you have to send it back. But we have it kind of planned on how we're going to spend it. So just wanted to give everybody just a real quick update where we are with that. You will see it in the budget. Now, the one thing that came out of last year's council or budget committee meetings, we wanted to close the non-departmental to wherever it fit within the general fund. So some of it went to council, some of it went to the administration departments, and some of it went into the finance department. I took the audit, legal fees, Chris took the city attorney and labor consultants and so on. Council took, we moved over there the dues and flower baskets and music and the park type items. So you will see non-department in the budget because it has history in it. It has 2 years of history that I have to show. it'll roll off in 2 years. So it'll still be there, Van. I can't get rid of it until it
It'll
rolls
be
off.
zero.
It'll be, over here on this side, it'll be zero, but these, it'll still have 2 years worth of data, historical data. I can't transfer it. Go ahead, Jeff.
What does the COG and LOC stand for?
Okay, Council of Governments, that's the COG. LOC is League of Oregon Cities. Is there any more acronyms up there? IT, I think, got information tech, or information.
The COG is Lynn Benton and Lincoln counties.
Yeah. Yeah, good catch, Jeff. I missed that one. So that one will not be there. I mean, but it'll be there. I just can't make it disappear yet. So.
The other thing you'll see on that real quick is because those line items were taken out of this department, because we're essentially trying to zero out what we classified as a department. A department was called non-departmental. It's where everything went that didn't go to a specific department, right? So we put it in non-departmental. So that department or that fund, we're essentially shutting that down, putting all zeros. But that means that these other funds and city council and admin and finance, you're going to see increases, right? Kind of abnormal increases, because they're not based on pay increases or project increases. They're based on these things that used to be in non-departmental. Now they're in admin finance. So you're going to see some fairly, abnormal increases in those other three funds now. And just know that we're going to absorb them this year. So when you see the comparison, like the admin budget this year to last year, you're going to see quite a bit of increase. Just know we're kind of resetting it now. And then next year, you'll see the difference between like this year and next year. And you'll see a little bit more of a equal comparison what the actual cost increase for that department is, not just we put additional line items into this other area. So just be aware that when you're looking at those three budget, you're going to see some increases there.
Sort of like a technical question, but for putting city attorney under administration department, I think technically in the city charter, the city attorney reports to the city council. So should that line item go under the city council department?
I don't see anything wrong with
it. Yeah, it can go wherever it needs to go.
Okay.
We put it on the admin side just because I pay the bill.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you're right. It really doesn't matter. It used to be a non-departmental, right?
Yeah.
So it's they work for the city council directly. It's really kind of an administrative function also. If the budget committee would prefer to see it somewhere else, then that's something we can talk about.
Right.
But just not tonight.
Yeah.
Because this is orientation.
Yeah.
We don't have a budget, so it's not.
And I guess I would add that, and it doesn't necessarily mean who's supervising who in reference to the budgets.
That's just where the payments come
from. That's where the payments come from, right.
Yep.
Okay, here's where, how will the budget be presented? 14th, you will get the budget booklet. So I hope I know we'll have 5 days to go through it. Please come back with questions, because on the 19th, once Van turns it over to me, we're going to kind of start zooming, not really zoom, go page by page. I don't know how many pages there are so far, but the general funds, it's got quite a few pages, so we're going to spend a lot of time there. We're going to go line by line, and you have a question, let me know. If we can answer it, Chris and I can answer it, we'll try and answer those simple ones. For the ones that are a little complex, we're going to say, okay, we're going to put that on our list, and we'll bring back, let's see, we'll just go all the way through until we're done, and we'll get whatever list that is, and we'll go away and come back on the second meeting with answers to the questions, and we'll bring in the department heads on that day too, so they can answer any questions that y'all may have. And it's got to be done by a majority vote. Now, one thing, if we're going to move money around or we're going to add something, you got to tell me where we're going to find them. I shouldn't say that. Where we're going to get the money. We don't find money. You don't want that in the paper. You don't find money. So anyway, if we take something and move it over here, that's okay. But if you want to increase something, how are we going to do it? That's
we'll take it away from somewhere else.
Yeah. No, I'm not gonna put words in. Go ahead, Brian.
And you said we would get a booklet. Will this be a digital booklet, or we come here and get a physical hard copy?
We can give you a hard copy, or we can give you a digital one. Yeah, because I know you weren't gonna be here for the first meeting.
Right, for the 19th, that's right.
And so, as far as I know, we're gonna try and make it digital. It's gonna be big, so.
We'll have a hard copy notebook for everybody, so
Yeah.
we'll have a binder that you can all have. But it'll also be available, even just on the city's website, we'll have all the budget material will be there,
Yeah.
so you'll have access.
Okay, let's see.
How soon can we get the binder? On the 14th or no?
14th, yeah.
So we can come down and get it?
Yeah, you can do that.
We've delivered it in the
Yeah,
past.
we've
I'm
delivered.
old enough that I like to actually look at it.
With accent.
Mhm.
Okay, and then,
That would be rad.
and then once we get past the second meeting, is the third meeting. You may have questions at the second meeting that we have to deal with. We'll have to bring back answers. So the third meeting, we'll go through any of that housekeeping, and then you approve the budget. So that's pretty much, once we hit that, your job's done. And we did this last year. If anybody has any questions on, or sees any way we can improve it, I'm open for anything that y'all can think of, so. Go ahead.
Didn't we, I think prior to the second meeting, with the meeting material, I think we included prior to the meeting, like 4 or 5 days before the meeting, didn't we have the answers for them
Mhm.
that we sent out ahead of time? So, if we're meeting on Wednesday, probably by Friday at the latest, we'll send you all the answers that staff's come up with to those questions. So you'll have time to review those answers and then come to the meeting. So that, when you come to that second meeting, it's not the first time you're seeing those answers, have to process all that. You'll have time before the meeting to process everything, make any additional questions. And that second meeting is going to be really not going through question by question, but are there any questions about the answers that we were given to the questions that you had? And are there any further questions, right? But again, we'll try to give you that in as much time as we can ahead of time.
That is the plan, yeah. Yeah, that's part of the budget calendar it's gonna go through, but that's it. That's good. So that's pretty much it on that part. So that's what we're gonna be doing the next 3 weeks. So any other questions y'all may have?
I have one just for you, because this is your second year. I know you have a lot of experience with other cities doing it, and you had changed things up from what I understood quite a bit from the previous person.
Mhm.
Is there anything else changes that we could be expecting from you, or anything different coming down that's just from last year and the last few years?
Not that I can think of, Jeff. That's what I'm saying. If you guys think of any improvements, I'm listening. I've done this one particular way of doing it for the last, now it's 8 years. So first I went into it not thinking it would work, but this is when I was in Newport, but after 8 years, it's a good system. It works out pretty good. So no, I don't think I'm going to change anything. But you never know, right? Something could happen, but now the budget, this says budgets are going to be distributed Friday. That's going to be Friday, April 19th. There's no way it's going to be ready this week. No way.
14th.
It'll be the 14th. Get what I say, the 19th? Yeah. It'll be the 14th.
If you get it done, right?
It will be done. It will be done. Next week's going to be busy. So it's already been busy. So anyway, if you have any questions about this meeting, give me a holler, give Chris a holler. But the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go over the budget calendar real quick. I mean, we kind of done that already. What Chris has said, the first meeting, we're going to have a whole bunch of questions. We're going to put a report together, and the plan to get that back to you is on April 28th, so you have it for the May 3rd meeting. So we're going down the list if there's any further questions, like Chris said. So the first 2 meetings, which were April 19th and May 3rd, those are at 5:30. The May 17th is at 6 p.m. So the plan of attack is if we have put an extra date in there in case there's additional meetings needed. I put it there just in case. It's not that May 10th, 5:30 meeting is not mandatory. It's not one, we'll talk about that if we need it. We'll talk about it May 3rd. But I always put an extra one in there just in case we run into a hiccup or something, or there was something, if we find out something between May 19th or April 19th and May 3rd that really changes the budget drastically. I mean, what if we have another major shutdown or something like that? Then we've got to have an extra meeting. So May 10th is, really, knock on wood. May 10th is not anything in stone. It's an emergency one if we need it. So I just went ahead and went over the budget calendar.
So everybody, when they got the agenda, they should have got that calendar. And I assume that's all the same.
That's all the same. Nothing's changed. No. That's the one I'm going over right now. I've got all my notes on it. So that's pretty much it, Dan. Like I said, I've already gone over the meeting minutes for the next meeting. So
okay. So, Chris, do you have anything?
I'll just add, if you have questions between now and getting your binders or then the meeting, call Mike. He'd be happy to take the calls from you. If it's process procedure wise, once you get the budget binder, if you've got questions, just write those down. Write them down and come with them, right? Don't think that you're going to remember everything on the spot. So write stuff down as you're going through stuff, highlight. The binder books will be yours to have, right? Anything that you write or note in there, you need to hang on to those as public record, right? So once you scribble on it, once you write on it, it becomes part of the public record, which isn't scary, just means don't write things about other people that aren't nice, right? Chris is, so have those, and you can keep those when you're done at the end of the year. If you want to give those back to the city, Ruth will take care of those, and we'll guard those as public record for as long as they need to be guarded. If you want to keep them, you can. You're just going to be responsible to keep them. If somebody files a records request and says, I want to see that notebook from whoever, then we'll have them, we'll contact you and say, hey, we need that binder. So you can keep it, but just know they're yours to utilize, right? So mark them up, write your questions on them, do whatever you need to do, and just come to that first meeting prepared with your questions. And assume if you have the question, somebody else probably has a similar question. There's no dumb questions on the budget side of things. We recognize we're all starting from different places. And it is complicated. I will just add, last bit is part of our process, we used to do a separate budget, a mini budget, we call it the small budget, right? And it was intended to kind of simplify. There's a little bit more narrative for each department. We talked about major changes in the department throughout the year. And we just looked at like the bottom line of what we were approving as opposed to looking at each of the line items. And it simplified it in that way, but then it complicated anytime there was an issue that came up or question, because then you're going between the small budget and the big budget, the more detailed budget. And I think it got a little bit cumbersome at times to do that. So that small budget's gone away, right? You're getting the budget. It's the full budget with all the line items in there. And that's what you're going through. And what we kind of touched on in the beginning is look at the line items, but if you see a 300% increase, that may be something you look at, but then you look and you say, okay, it's a 300% increase, but it went from, $100 to $400. There's your increase. That math's not right. 100 to whatever, 300% increase.
Okay.
Where's my banker? What's a 300% increase to 100? So if you see those flags, look at the dollar figure, right? And that's going to make some sense. But at the end of the day, Mike touched on this a little bit, the department, so I'll just pick on the police department. That police department budget, when you see that, you'll see all the personnel expenses. Some of that is dictated, well, all of that's going to be dictated by our union contract that we have, right? So the salaries are going to be set, overtime is going to be set, Medicare, or not the Medicare, but the PERS is going to be set, insurance is going to be set. So a lot of those figures aren't things we say, well, I don't want to pay that amount, we need to reduce that. Well, we can't. We have a contractual obligation. We have to pay that, right? So there's going to be things in there where you're like, well, I don't like that. Well, I'm sorry you don't like it, but we have to do it, right? And then you've got the whole materials and services portion. It's like, why are we paying so much for office supplies, right? Well, copy here is expensive, paper is expensive. Well, we should spend less money for paper clips and paper or whatever else. Those numbers are coming from the police chief, right? From his staff. And they're looking at that budget saying, okay, what did we spend last year on supplies? what do we need to spend this year on supplies? And that's kind of how they're going and putting that number. That number is not coming from Mike, that's coming from the department. So the police department has looked through their budget, submitted it to Mike, he's crunching the numbers, putting it out there, and then that's when you're seeing it, right? So what you're approving, which was, I think that first slide was a little confusing, what you're approving isn't the line items, how much we're spending for copier, how much you're spending for all the different line items. What you're approving is the department total at the bottom of the page, right? So if you think that there's some things that are too expensive there, then you say, I think we should reduce this instead of a 3.5% increase. I think a 3.3% increase is more appropriate for whatever reason. Put that out to everybody, and if you can get a majority of the budget committee to agree, then we'll adjust that budget accordingly. But it's not the line item, it's the dollar figure at the bottom, right? So you look through that a little bit, but just know if it was me and it was my first time on the budget committee, I'd take that binder, I'd look through, I'd look at the percentage increases, I look for the big ticket items first, what are the big numbers, and did those change significantly from last year to this year? And then I'd look at, you'll see a percentage change column, and you look at that and just see where those large percentage changes are. Those would be flags where you can pay a little bit more attention to, but it is a big document. Don't feel like you got to spend hours and hours and hours going through it. The big changes are going to jump at you pretty quickly, and those are maybe the things that you have more questions about than the other things that, $120 expense went up to $140. I would hope we don't have to spend a lot of time justifying $120 to $140 increase, right? So some of that stuff's just we'll just need to pass on those, hopefully, with a lot of the questions. So that's the last I'll get. You'll see more when you get the binders. Again, ask Mike if you've got the questions. And yeah, thanks again for being willing to be on the budget committee. It's pretty intense for a couple of months, and then you're done for the year. Other than you'll get a quarterly report from Mike. We didn't really explain that, but you'll get a report every quarter. You can always reach back out if you've got questions on specifics, but we'll keep you up to date on, we're halfway through the year. How are we doing on expenditures? Are we about halfway? Or how's the revenue? Did all the tax money come in that we thought was going to come in, or did tax revenue come short for some reason? Right. So you'll get quarterly updates from Mike on those. The city council and the budget committee members, everybody gets that report. But once we get through this couple of months, then you're kind of done. So it's pretty intense right now, and then it'll go back off a little bit. So thank you for your willingness. It'll be fun.
Anybody got any questions before we end the meeting? Okay. Well, we can't see the other two.
I don't see any hands up.
You see no hands up. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting. We'll